Maya walked slowly down the busy street. Her old shoes made soft sounds on the concrete. The sun was getting low in the sky. Soon it would be dark. She pulled her thin jacket closer around her body. The wind was cold today. Her stomach made a loud noise. She had not eaten anything since yesterday morning. That was when she found half a sandwich in the trash behind a coffee shop. The sandwich was still good, but that was more than 24 hours ago. Now her stomach hurt from being empty. Maya was 17 years old. She had been living on the streets for 3 months now. Before that, she lived in a group home for kids who had no families. But when she turned 17, they said she was too old. She had to leave. They gave her a small bag with her clothes and $50. That money was gone in the first week. She carried everything she owned in an old backpack. The backpack was blue once, but now it was faded and dirty. Inside were 2 changes of clothes, a small blanket, and a photo of her mother. Her mother died when Maya was 8 years old. She had no other family. Maya tried to keep herself clean. Every few days she went to the public library. They had a bathroom where she could wash her face and hands. Sometimes she could take a quick shower at the homeless shelter, but the shelter was always full. Most nights she slept in doorways or under bridges. People walked past her on the street. They were all going somewhere. They had homes to go to. They had families waiting for them. Maya watched a woman carrying grocery bags. The woman looked happy. She was probably going home to cook dinner for her family. Maya tried not to think about food, but it was hard. She could smell cooking from the restaurants. The smells made her stomach hurt more. She saw people eating through restaurant windows. They looked so comfortable and warm. She had tried to find work, but most places wanted someone with experience, or they wanted someone with a permanent address. Maya had neither of these things. She did small jobs sometimes. She helped people carry heavy bags. She cleaned up trash in parking lots, but these jobs only paid a few dollars. Maya was smart. She had always done well in school before everything went wrong. She loved to read. When she was younger, she spent hours at the library reading books about music and art. She dreamed of going to college someday. But now that seemed impossible. The worst part was being invisible. Most people looked right through her like she was not there. Some people stared at her with unfriendly faces. They thought she was dangerous or dirty. But Maya was neither of these things. She was just unlucky. She remembered her life before the streets. When she was little, her mother would sing to her every night. Her mother had a beautiful voice. She taught Maya to love music. They would listen to classical music together on an old radio. Her mother said music could heal any sadness. After her mother died, Maya went to live with different families. Some were kind, but none of them kept her for long. She moved from house to house. Each time she hoped this family would be different. Each time she was disappointed. When she was 14, she lived with a family called the Johnsons. They had a piano in their living room. Mrs. Johnson taught Maya how to play. Maya loved the feeling of her fingers on the keys. The music made her feel connected to her mother again. She practiced every day after school. Maya was good at piano. Very good. Mrs. Johnson said she had natural talent. She helped Maya learn difficult pieces. Maya's favorite was a slow, beautiful song by a composer named Chopin. When she played it, she could forget about all her problems. But the Johnsons moved away when Maya was 15. She had to go to a new family. This family did not have a piano. Maya was sad to lose her music. She tried to practice at school sometimes, but the music teacher was always busy with other students. Now walking on the cold street, Maya missed the piano more than anything. She missed the way music made her feel safe. She missed the way her troubles disappeared when she played. Sometimes at night she would move her fingers like she was playing piano, but there was no sound. Just the memory of music. Maya walked past a music store. Through the window she could see shiny new pianos. She stopped and looked for a moment. Her fingers pressed against the cold glass. She imagined sitting at one of those pianos. She imagined playing music again. A man inside the store saw her looking. He came to the window and made an angry face at her. He pointed for her to go away. Maya felt her cheeks get red with shame. She walked quickly away from the store. The streetlights were starting to turn on. Maya needed to find a place to sleep for the night. She also needed to find food, but she had no money. She had asked people for help earlier, but no one gave her anything. Some people said mean things to her. Others just pretended they did not hear her. Maya was not good at asking for money. It made her feel embarrassed. She was raised to be polite and to work for what she needed, but now she had no choice. She was too hungry and tired to be proud. She thought about her mother often. What would her mother think if she could see Maya now? Would she be disappointed? Maya tried to make good choices. She did not do drugs like some of the other homeless people. She did not steal even when she was very hungry. She tried to stay clean and safe, but staying safe was hard on the streets. Especially for a young girl. Maya had learned to be careful. She stayed away from dangerous areas. She tried to sleep in places where other people could see her. But she was always afraid. Tomorrow would be another day of looking for food and work. Another day of trying to survive. Maya did not know how much longer she could do this. Winter was coming and the nights were getting colder. She needed help, but she did not know where to find it. She pulled her thin blanket from her backpack and wrapped it around her shoulders. The blanket smelled like the streets, but it was warm. Maya found a doorway that was protected from the wind. She sat down and leaned against the brick wall. As she closed her eyes, Maya hummed quietly to herself. It was the Chopin piece she had learned to play. The melody was sad but beautiful. It reminded her that somewhere inside her the music was still alive. Even though everything else in her life was broken, the music remained. Maya woke up when the sun started to rise. Her back hurt from sleeping against the hard wall. The doorway had kept her safe from the wind, but the concrete was cold and uncomfortable. She folded her blanket and put it back in her backpack. The morning air was crisp and clean. Maya could hear the city waking up around her. Cars drove by on the street. People walked past carrying coffee cups and briefcases. They were going to work. Maya wished she had somewhere to go too. Her stomach made loud noises again. She had not eaten anything in almost 2 days now. She felt weak and dizzy when she stood up. Maya knew she needed to find food today or she might get sick. She walked to a public bathroom in a small park. The bathroom was dirty, but it had running water. Maya washed her face and hands with cold water. She looked at herself in the broken mirror. Her face was thin now. Her clothes were wrinkled from sleeping in them. But she tried to make herself look as neat as possible. Maya spent the morning looking for work. She went to 3 different stores and asked if they needed help. The first store owner said no without even looking at her. The second store owner said she was too young. The third store owner seemed nice but said he could not hire anyone without a permanent address. By afternoon, Maya felt very weak. The sun was warm, but she felt cold inside. She sat on a bench in the park and watched children play. Their mothers sat nearby, talking and laughing. Maya remembered when her own mother used to take her to parks like this. As evening came, Maya walked through the nicer part of town. The buildings here were clean and pretty. The shops had bright lights in their windows. Maya could smell food cooking everywhere. Her mouth watered as she walked past a bakery. Fresh bread and cookies were displayed in the window. Then Maya saw Romano's restaurant. It was a beautiful place with large windows. Warm yellow light came from inside. She could see people sitting at tables covered with white cloths. They were eating and talking. Everyone looked happy and comfortable. Maya stood outside the restaurant for a long time. She watched the people inside eating their dinners. She could smell garlic and tomatoes and fresh bread. Her stomach hurt so much now that she felt sick. 2 well-dressed people came out of the restaurant. A man and a woman, both middle-aged. The woman had kind eyes and gray hair pulled back neatly. The man wore an expensive-looking coat. They were talking and laughing as they walked toward their car. Maya took a deep breath. She hated asking people for money, but she had no choice. She was too hungry and weak to wait any longer. She walked up to the couple but kept a respectful distance. "Excuse me," Maya said quietly. Her voice shook a little. "I'm sorry to bother you. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Could you please spare some change for food?" The man looked uncomfortable and started to walk faster toward their car. But the woman stopped. She looked at Maya carefully. Maya kept her eyes down, feeling embarrassed. "What's your name, dear?" the woman asked. Her voice was gentle and warm. "Maya," she answered, still looking at the ground. "How old are you, Maya?" 17, ma'am." The woman, Mrs. Elizabeth Chen, studied Maya's face. She noticed that despite Maya's situation, the girl spoke politely. Her clothes were old but clean. There was something different about this young person. She did not seem like the other homeless people Mrs. Chen had encountered. "Where are your parents, Maya?" Mrs. Chen asked. "My mother died when I was 8. I don't have any other family. I was in foster care, but I aged out 3 months ago. Mrs. Chen felt her heart break a little. She was a music teacher at the local high school. She had seen many troubled teenagers over the years. But there was something special about Maya. The girl had dignity and intelligence in her eyes, even though she was clearly desperate. Harold, Mrs. Chen called to her husband, who was waiting by their car. Come here for a moment. Harold Chen walked back, looking uncertain. He was a kind man, but he was always worried about safety. The city could be dangerous, especially at night. This is Maya, Mrs. Chen said to her husband. She's hungry and alone. Harold looked at Maya and then at his wife. He could see that his wife was already making plans to help this girl. After 30 years of marriage, he knew that look in her eyes. What do you think we should do? Harold asked his wife quietly. Mrs. Chen made a decision that surprised even herself. Maya, would you like to come inside and have dinner with us? You can order whatever you want. Maya looked up in shock. She could not believe what she was hearing. Are you sure? I don't have any money to pay you back. We're sure, Mrs. Chen said with a warm smile. Everyone deserves a good meal. Harold was surprised by his wife's invitation, but he trusted her judgment. He had learned over the years that his wife had good instincts about people. Maya felt tears come to her eyes. She had forgotten that kind people still existed in the world. Thank you so much. I promise I'm not dangerous or anything. I just need help. We can see that, Mrs. Chen said. Come on, let's go inside where it's warm. The three of them walked back into Romano's restaurant. Maya felt nervous walking into such a nice place. The floors were shiny and everything looked expensive. She was very aware of her old clothes and worn shoes. The hostess looked at Maya with suspicion. But when she saw that Maya was with the Chens, she smiled and led them to a good table near the window. Maya sat down carefully in the comfortable chair. The table had a white cloth and real flowers in a small vase. She had never eaten in such a nice restaurant before. Mrs. Chen handed Maya a menu. Order anything you want, dear. Don't worry about the price. Maya looked at the menu, but the words were blurry. She realized she was crying. She wiped her eyes quickly and tried to read the menu. Everything sounded wonderful, but she did not want to order something too expensive. The chicken parmesan is very good here, Mrs. Chen suggested, and they have excellent soup to start. That sounds perfect, Maya said. Thank you so much. I can't believe you're being so kind to me. Sometimes we all need help, Mrs. Chen replied. I'm just glad we can provide it. As they waited for their food, Mrs. Chen asked Maya about her life. Maya told her about living in different foster homes and about aging out of the system. She talked about her mother and how much she missed her. What do you like to do, Maya? What are your interests? Mrs. Chen asked. Maya hesitated for a moment. I used to play piano, she said quietly. My mother loved music, and I learned to play when I was younger. But I haven't played in a long time. Mrs. Chen's eyes lit up. As a music teacher, she was always excited to meet young people who loved music. What kind of music did you play? Classical mostly. I learned some Chopin and Debussy, but I wasn't very good, Maya said modestly. I'm sure you were better than you think, Mrs. Chen said. Music is a wonderful gift. Maya smiled for the first time in weeks. It felt good to talk about music again. It reminded her of happier times when music filled her life with joy and hope. The soup arrived first, and Maya tried not to eat too quickly. But she was so hungry that it was hard to control herself. The soup was warm and delicious. It was the best thing she had tasted in months. Mrs. Chen watched with satisfaction as Maya ate. This is so good, Maya said between spoonfuls. I had forgotten what real food tastes like. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Mrs. Chen replied. Tell me more about your piano playing. How long did you study? Maya paused with her spoon halfway to her mouth. I studied for about 3 years when I lived with the Johnson family. Mrs. Johnson was very patient with me. She said I had good hands for piano. What happened to your lessons? Harold asked. He had been listening quietly to their conversation. The Johnsons moved to another state when I was 15. I had to go to a new foster family. They didn't have a piano and there was no money for lessons. Maya's voice became sad. I tried to practice at school sometimes, but the music room was usually busy. Mrs. Chen leaned forward with interest. Do you remember any of the pieces you learned? I think so. My favorite was a nocturne by Chopin. It was slow and beautiful. When I played it, I felt like my mother was listening. Maya smiled at the memory. I also learned some easier pieces by Bach and Mozart. The main course arrived. Maya had ordered chicken parmesan with pasta. The portion was huge, bigger than anything she had eaten in months. She cut a small piece of chicken and tasted it. It was tender and flavorful, covered in rich tomato sauce and melted cheese. "This is amazing," Maya said. "I can't thank you enough for this meal." "You're very welcome," Mrs. Chen said. "But I have an idea that might interest you." Maya looked up from her plate. Mrs. Chen had a thoughtful expression on her face. "You see that piano over there?" Mrs. Chen pointed to the corner of the restaurant. Maya turned to look. In the corner sat a beautiful black grand piano. It was shiny and elegant, much nicer than any piano she had ever played. The bench was empty and the piano lid was closed. "It's beautiful," Maya said. "Does someone play it?" "Sometimes," Mrs. Chen replied, "but not very often. The restaurant owner bought it a few years ago, thinking he would hire a regular pianist, but he never found the right person." Maya stared at the piano. Even from across the room, she could imagine how wonderful it would sound. Her fingers moved slightly on the table as if they were remembering how to play. "Maya," Mrs. Chen said carefully, "I have a proposition for you." "What do you mean?" Maya asked. Mrs. Chen exchanged a look with her husband. Harold nodded slightly, giving her permission to continue. "If you would be willing to play something on that piano, I will not only pay for this dinner, but I'll give you enough money for a week's worth of food." Maya nearly choked on her pasta. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious," Mrs. Chen said. "I'm a music teacher and I can tell when someone has real musical ability. Even just talking about piano, I can see the passion in your eyes." Maya looked around the restaurant. There were about 20 other customers eating their dinners. They all looked wealthy and sophisticated. Maya felt very small and out of place. "I don't know," Maya said nervously. "I haven't played in months. And I've never played in front of strangers like this. What if I'm terrible?" "I doubt you'll be terrible," Mrs. Chen said with confidence. "Music is like riding a bicycle. Once you learn, your body remembers." "But look at me," Maya said, gesturing to her old clothes. "I don't look like someone who should be playing piano in a nice restaurant like this." "Music doesn't care what you look like," Mrs. Chen replied gently. "Music only cares about what's in your heart," Harold spoke up. "My wife has good instincts about music. If she thinks you can do this, then you probably can." Maya looked at the piano again. Part of her was terrified at the thought of playing in front of all these people. But another part of her was excited. She had missed music so much. She had dreamed about playing piano again. "What would I play?" Maya asked. "I don't have any sheet music with me." "Play something you remember," Mrs. Chen suggested. "Play something that means something to you." Maya thought about the pieces she had learned. The Chopin Nocturne was her favorite, but it was also the most difficult. There was a simpler piece by Bach that she had practiced many times, and she remembered a beautiful song by Debussy that Mrs. Johnson had taught her. "How much money are we talking about?" Maya asked. She felt embarrassed asking about money, but she needed to know. "Enough for a week of good meals," Mrs. Chen said. "Maybe enough for a few nights in a cheap motel where you can be safe and warm." Maya's eyes widened. A week of food and a few nights indoors sounded like heaven to her. "Why would you do this for me?" Maya asked. "You don't even know me." Mrs. Chen was quiet for a moment. "I've been teaching music for 25 years, she said finally. "I've seen hundreds of students come and go. Most of them were talented, but only a few had that special spark. Something about the way you talk about music tells me you might be one of those special few. But what if I embarrass myself? What if I forget how to play?" "Then you forget how to play," Mrs. Chen said with a shrug. "It's not the end of the world. But what if you remember? What if you sit down at that piano and something magical happens?" Maya felt her heart beating faster. The thought of playing piano again made her both excited and scared. "The restaurant isn't too busy tonight," Harold observed. "People here seem relaxed and friendly. I think they would enjoy hearing some music." Maya looked around the restaurant again. She noticed that several of the customers looked kind and approachable. An elderly couple at one table was holding hands and talking quietly. A family with teenage children was laughing together. These didn't seem like people who would be mean if she made mistakes. "What do you think, Maya?" Mrs. Chen asked gently. "Are you willing to try?" Maya took a deep breath. She thought about how hungry she had been when she woke up this morning. She thought about sleeping on the cold street again tonight. She thought about her mother, who had always encouraged her to be brave. "Okay," Maya said quietly. "I'll try." Mrs. Chen smiled with delight. Wonderful. But finish your dinner first. The music will be even better when you're not hungry. Maya tried to eat the rest of her meal slowly, but her stomach was now full of butterflies as well as food. She kept looking at the piano, trying to remember the fingering for her favorite pieces. Don't overthink it, Mrs. Chen advised, noticing Maya's nervous expression. Just let the music flow through you. Trust your hands to remember what your mind has forgotten. As Maya took her last bite of dinner, she made a decision. She would play the Chopin Nocturne. It was the piece that meant the most to her. If she was going to do this, she would do it properly. She would play the music that connected her to her mother and to the happiest memories of her life. I'm ready, Maya said, setting down her fork. Mrs. Chen squeezed her hand encouragingly. I can't wait to hear you play. Maya stood up from the table on shaky legs. Her dinner sat heavy in her stomach, but now it felt like it was filled with rocks instead of food. She had agreed to play, but now that the moment was here, she felt terrified. The piano seemed much larger and more intimidating now that she was walking toward it. It was a beautiful instrument, probably worth more money than Maya had ever seen in her life. The black surface was so shiny she could see her reflection in it. Mrs. Chen and Harold followed behind her at a respectful distance. Maya could feel their encouraging presence, but she also felt the weight of their expectations. What if she disappointed them after they had been so kind to her? Maya reached the piano and just stood there staring at it. The bench was the perfect height and the keys looked pristine and well-maintained. She could see her reflection in the polished wood. Her face looked pale and uncertain. Take your time, dear, Mrs. Chen said softly from behind her. Maya became aware that other people in the restaurant were starting to notice her. A few customers had turned in their chairs to see what was happening. Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She was very conscious of her old clothes and worn shoes. She sat down on the bench and immediately felt how different this piano was from the old upright piano she had learned on. This was a concert-quality instrument. The bench was comfortable and sturdy. The piano keys were at the perfect distance from her body. Maya lifted the lid that covered the keys. The black and white keys looked perfect, like a smile waiting to sing. She placed her hands in her lap and stared at the keyboard. Her hands were shaking slightly. She tried to remember the beginning of the Chopin Nocturne. The piece started with a simple melody in the right hand, while the left hand played gentle chords. But sitting here now, Maya couldn't remember exactly how it began. Panic started to rise in her chest. What if she had forgotten everything? What if the months on the street had erased all her musical knowledge? What if she sat down and couldn't play anything at all? Maya glanced back at Mrs. Chen, who was watching her with kind, patient eyes. The older woman smiled encouragingly and nodded as if to say, You can do this. But Maya wasn't sure she could do this. The restaurant seemed very quiet now. She could hear the soft conversations of the other diners, the clink of silverware on plates, the gentle hum of the air conditioning. Soon all of that would stop and everyone would be listening to her. She placed her fingers on the keys but didn't press down. The keys felt cool and smooth under her fingertips. It had been so long since she had touched a piano. For a moment she felt a rush of joy just from the familiar feeling of her hands on the keyboard. Maya closed her eyes and tried to calm her breathing. She thought about her mother. When Maya was little and scared about something, her mother would tell her to imagine that she was surrounded by love and protection. Pretend you're in a bubble of light, her mother would say. Nothing bad can touch you inside your bubble. Maya tried to imagine that bubble now. She pictured warm golden light surrounding her and the piano. Inside this bubble there was only music and love. There was no judgment, no fear, no embarrassment. She thought about Mrs. Johnson, her foster mother who had taught her to play. Mrs. Johnson always said that music was a gift meant to be shared. Don't play for yourself, Mrs. Johnson would say. Play for the joy of creating something beautiful. Maya remembered the first time she had successfully played the Chopin Nocturne all the way through. Mrs. Johnson had tears in her eyes afterward. That was beautiful, Maya, she had said. You have a real gift. Maybe that gift was still inside her. Maybe it had been waiting all these months for her to find a piano again. Maya opened her eyes and looked at the keys. Slowly, she raised her right hand and placed it in position. Her fingers curved naturally over the keys, just like Mrs. Johnson had taught her. Her left hand found its position as well. She could feel more people in the restaurant turning to watch her now. The conversations were getting quieter. Maya felt exposed and vulnerable, like everyone could see right through her. But then she remembered something her mother used to tell her. When you're scared, Maya, just remember that courage isn't about not being afraid. Courage is about doing the right thing even when you are afraid. Playing this music felt like the right thing to do. Mrs. Chen had shown her incredible kindness. The least Maya could do was try to give something back. Maya took a deep breath and pressed down on the first key. The note rang out clear and pure in the restaurant. It was the beginning of the Chopin Nocturne, the piece that had always meant the most to her. As soon as she heard that first note, Maya felt something inside her relax. Her fingers remembered. Even though her mind had been uncertain, her body knew exactly what to do. The melody began to flow from her hands like water from a spring. The first few measures were tentative as Maya got used to the feel of this new piano. But as the familiar music filled her ears, confidence began to return. Her left hand joined in with the gentle accompanying chords. Maya forgot about the restaurant around her. She forgot about the people watching. She forgot about her old clothes and her empty backpack. There was only the music, flowing through her fingers and filling the space around her. The piano was the most beautiful instrument she had ever played. Every note was clear and resonant. The sound was rich and full, much better than any piano she had practiced on before. It was like the difference between singing in a bathroom and singing in a cathedral. As Maya played, she felt her mother's presence with her. She could almost hear her mother's voice saying, "That's my girl. That's my musical girl." The conversations in the restaurant had stopped completely now. Maya was dimly aware that everyone was listening, but it no longer scared her. She was inside her bubble of light, surrounded by music and love. The Nocturne was a slow, dreamy piece that told a story without words. It spoke of longing and beauty, of sadness and hope. As Maya played, she put all of her own experiences into the music. All of her loneliness, all of her fear, all of her dreams for a better future. Her fingers moved across the keys with growing confidence. The muscle memory was returning quickly. She remembered not just the notes, but the feeling of each phrase, the way the music should breathe and flow. Maya began to feel something she had almost forgotten, the pure joy of making music. Despite everything that had happened to her, despite all the hardship and pain, the music was still there inside her. It had been waiting patiently for her to return to it. As she played, Maya felt like she was telling her story to everyone in the restaurant. She was saying, "This is who I really am. Not the homeless girl in old clothes, but someone who can create beauty. Someone who has something valuable to offer the world." The music swelled and danced under her fingers. Maya felt completely alive for the first time in months. Maya's confidence grew with each note. The Chopin Nocturne was flowing from her fingers like she had played it just yesterday. The piano responded beautifully to her touch, creating sounds that were rich and warm. Every note seemed to hang in the air for just the right amount of time before fading into the next. She could feel the music taking over her body. Her shoulders relaxed and her breathing became deeper and more natural. Her hands moved across the keys with a grace that surprised even her. The months of not playing had not damaged her ability at all. If anything, she seemed to be playing with more emotion than ever before. The restaurant had become completely quiet except for Maya's music. She was aware that people had stopped eating to listen, but it no longer made her nervous. The music was creating a bridge between her and the audience. She was sharing something precious with them, and they were receiving it with respect and attention. Mrs. Chen stood behind Maya with tears starting to form in her eyes. As a music teacher, she could immediately tell that Maya was not just talented, she was gifted. The way Maya shaped each phrase, the way she made the piano sing with expression, showed musical maturity far beyond her years. Harold Chen was also amazed. He was not a musician himself, but he had listened to his wife play piano for 30 years. He had attended countless student recitals and professional concerts. He knew good music when he heard it, and this was very, very good music. Maya reached the middle section of the Nocturne, where the melody became more complex and emotional. Her right hand played a flowing line of notes that seemed to tell a story of longing and hope. Her left hand provided gentle support with chords that rocked back and forth like a lullaby. This was the part of the piece that had always reminded Maya of her mother. When she was younger, playing this section made her feel like her mother was in the room with her. Now, sitting at this beautiful piano, she felt that connection even more strongly. As Maya played, she began to forget where she was entirely. The restaurant faded away. The people watching her became invisible. There was only the music and the memories it brought back. She remembered being 6 years old and sitting next to her mother on the couch while classical music played on their old radio. Her mother would close her eyes and sway gently to the music. "Listen to how the melody moves, Maya," her mother would say. "Music is like a river. It knows exactly where it wants to go." Maya let the music flow like that river now. She didn't have to think about which keys to press. Her hands seemed to know the way on their own. The melody moved forward with its own natural rhythm, sometimes rushing ahead with excitement, sometimes slowing down to savor a particularly beautiful moment. A waiter who had been carrying a tray of dishes stopped in the middle of the dining room to listen. He stood completely still, balancing the heavy tray, afraid to make any noise that might disturb the music. Other waiters also stopped what they were doing. The kitchen staff, hearing the piano through the serving window, came to the doorway to listen. Maya was completely lost in the music now. She felt like she was floating in a warm ocean of sound. All the pain and fear of the past few months seemed to wash away with each note. This was who she really was. Not a homeless teenager struggling to survive, but a musician with something beautiful to share with the world. The customers in the restaurant were spellbound. An elderly man at a corner table had tears running down his cheeks. A young couple who had been arguing earlier in the evening were now holding hands and listening in wonder. A businessman who had been checking his phone constantly all evening had put it away and was giving Maya his complete attention. Maya moved into the final section of the nocturne. This was the part that had always challenged her the most. The melody became more delicate and intricate, requiring precise fingerwork and careful timing. But tonight her fingers felt like they could do anything. She played the cascading runs of notes that led to the climax of the piece. Each note was crystal clear and perfectly placed. The music built to a moment of passionate intensity, then began to settle back into the gentle, dreamy mood of the beginning. Mrs. Chen was crying openly now. She had heard this piece performed many times by students and professionals alike, but she had never heard it played with such pure emotion. Maya was not just playing the notes on the page. She was pouring her heart into every phrase. The restaurant owner, Tony Romano, had emerged from his office when he heard the piano. He stood at the edge of the dining room, amazed at what he was hearing. He had bought the piano hoping to create an elegant atmosphere for his restaurant, but he had never found a pianist who could really make it sing. Now this young girl, who looked like she had been living on the streets, was making his piano sound like it belonged in Carnegie Hall. Maya approached the ending of the nocturne. The final phrases were soft and reflective, like a gentle goodbye. She played each note with careful attention, not wanting this moment to end. When would she get another chance to play a piano this beautiful? When would she again feel this connection to her mother and to the music they had shared? The last few measures of the piece were very quiet and slow. Maya's left hand played simple, peaceful chords, while her right hand played a melody that seemed to float in the air. The music was saying goodbye, but it was a hopeful goodbye, like the sun setting with the promise of another sunrise. Maya played the final chord and let it ring in the silence. She kept her hands on the keys for a moment, not wanting to break the spell. The last note seemed to hang in the air forever before finally fading away. Only then did Maya realize that the entire restaurant was completely silent. She had been so absorbed in the music that she had forgotten about the audience. Now, sitting in the sudden quiet, she became aware that every single person in the restaurant was looking at her. For a moment, Maya felt panic return. Had she made mistakes? Had she embarrassed herself? She looked around nervously, trying to read the expressions on people's faces. Then something wonderful happened. The elderly man in the corner started to clap. The sound of his applause broke the silence like a stone dropped in a still pond. Within seconds, everyone in the restaurant was clapping. But this was not polite, obligatory applause. This was the kind of clapping that comes from the heart. People were smiling, some were crying, and a few were calling out, "Bravo!" The businessman was clapping so hard his hands must have hurt. The young couple was cheering. Maya sat at the piano bench, overwhelmed by the response. She had never experienced anything like this before. When she played at the community center or for Mrs. Johnson, there had always been encouragement and praise. But this was different. This felt like genuine amazement and appreciation. Mrs. Chen rushed forward and put her arms around Maya's shoulders. "That was absolutely beautiful," she said through her tears. "That was one of the most moving performances I've ever heard." Maya felt tears coming to her own eyes. "Really, I was so nervous. I thought I might have made mistakes." "If you made any mistakes, nobody noticed," Mrs. Chen said. "You played with such feeling, such maturity. Maya, you have a real gift." Maya felt a surge of confidence from the warm applause. The fear that had gripped her before was completely gone now. She looked around the restaurant and saw faces filled with appreciation and wonder. These people were not judging her appearance or her circumstances. They were simply enjoying the music. "Would you like to play another piece?" Mrs. Chen asked hopefully. Maya nodded without hesitation. The piano felt like home to her now. Her fingers were completely warmed up and her musical memory was flowing freely. She thought about what to play next. "I know a piece by Debussy," Maya said. "It's called Clair de Lune. Do you know it?" Mrs. Chen's eyes lit up. "It's one of my favorite pieces. Please play it." Maya positioned her hands over the keys again. Clair de Lune was a different kind of piece from the Chopin Nocturne. Where the Nocturne was romantic and emotional, Clair de Lune was mysterious and dreamlike. It painted pictures with sound like moonlight reflecting on water. She began the opening notes, which were soft and floating. The melody seemed to shimmer like light on the surface of a lake. Maya had always loved this piece because it felt like magic to her. When she played it, she could imagine herself in a fairy tale. The restaurant audience settled back into rapt attention. They had been impressed by Maya's first piece, but now they were beginning to understand that they were witnessing something truly special. This was not just a talented teenager playing piano. This was an artist creating something beautiful. Maya's technique was flawless, but more importantly, her interpretation was deeply personal. Every phrase had meaning. Every note was chosen with care. She played with the wisdom of someone much older, yet with the freshness and wonder of youth. Mrs. Chen watched Maya's hands move across the keys and marveled at what she was seeing. The girl's finger position was perfect. Her pedaling was sophisticated. Her sense of rhythm and timing was impeccable. These were skills that took years to develop, and Maya had learned them despite having very limited access to instruction. The melody of Clair de Lune floated through the restaurant like a gentle breeze. Some customers closed their eyes to better focus on the sound. Others watched Maya's hands, fascinated by the way her fingers seemed to dance on the keys. Tony Romano, the restaurant owner, stood transfixed. He had dreamed of having live piano music in his restaurant for years. He had auditioned several professional pianists, but none of them had created the atmosphere he was looking for. Some were technically skilled but emotionally cold. Others were expressive but made too many mistakes. But this young girl was giving him exactly what he had imagined. Her music was sophisticated enough for his upscale clientele, yet accessible enough that anyone could enjoy it. She was creating the perfect ambiance, elegant, warm, and memorable. Maya moved through the middle section of Clair de Lune, where the melody became more active and complex. Her right hand played rippling arpeggios that sounded like water flowing over stones. Her left hand provided a steady foundation with deep, resonant bass notes. The music was telling a story without words. It spoke of moonlight and mystery, of beauty and tranquility. Maya felt like she was painting with sound, creating images that only music could capture. As she played, Maya began to feel something she had not experienced since before her mother died, a sense of purpose and belonging. For months, she had felt like she was just surviving, just trying to get through each day. But here at this piano, she felt like she was doing what she was meant to do. The diners in the restaurant were completely captivated. A family with 2 teenage children had been planning to leave after finishing their dessert. But when Maya started playing, they had asked their waiter to bring them coffee so they could stay longer. An older couple who had been married for 40 years held hands as they listened. The husband leaned over to his wife and whispered, "This reminds me of our honeymoon in Paris." The wife squeezed his hand and smiled, remembering the same moonlit evening by the Seine River. Maya reached the climax of the piece, where the melody soared to its highest point before beginning its gentle descent back to earth. She played this section with passionate intensity, her whole body swaying slightly with the music. The sound filled every corner of the restaurant. The waiters had completely stopped working. The kitchen staff stood in the doorway, still wearing their aprons, listening with amazement. Even people walking by on the street outside had stopped to look through the restaurant windows, drawn by the beautiful music floating out into the night. Mrs. Chen felt chills running down her arms. As a music teacher, she had heard thousands of student performances. She had attended concerts by world-famous pianists, but she had rarely heard music that moved her as deeply as what Maya was playing right now. The piece began to wind down toward its peaceful conclusion. Maya played the final phrases with tender care, each note like a soft goodbye. The melody settled back into the dreamy mood of the beginning, like the moon setting at dawn. As the last notes faded away, the restaurant remained silent for several heartbeats. It was as if no one wanted to break the spell that Maya's music had created. The silence was not empty. It was full of the echoes of the beautiful sounds that had just filled the space. Then the applause began again, even stronger than before. People stood up from their tables, clapping enthusiastically. Someone called out, "Encore!" Others whistled and cheered. Maya sat at the piano, overwhelmed by the response. She had never imagined that her music could affect people this way. She looked around at all the smiling faces and felt a warmth spread through her chest. Tony Romano approached the piano, clapping as he walked. "Young lady," he said in a voice loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, "that was absolutely magnificent. In 20 years of running this restaurant, I have never heard anything so beautiful." Maya blushed and looked down at her hands, which were still resting on the piano keys. "Thank you," she said quietly. "What's your name?" Tony asked. "Maya," she replied. "Maya, I don't know what your situation is, but I would love to offer you a job playing piano here in my restaurant. You would be perfect for this place." The restaurant customers applauded even louder at this announcement. Maya looked around in shock. A job playing piano? It seemed too good to be true. Mrs. Chen came forward with tears of joy in her eyes. "Maya, you are incredibly talented. You have a gift that needs to be shared with the world." Maya felt overwhelmed by all the attention and praise. Just 2 hours ago, she had been hungry and homeless, sleeping in doorways and begging for change. Now she was being offered a job and told she had extraordinary talent. "I don't know what to say," Maya said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Say yes," called out the elderly man who had been the first to applaud. "The world needs more beautiful music like yours." Maya looked around the restaurant at all the encouraging faces. These strangers had become an audience, and then they had become supporters. They believed in her music, and maybe, just maybe, she could start to believe in herself again too. For the first time in months, Maya felt hope blooming in her chest like a flower opening to the sun. Maya stood up from the piano bench on trembling legs. The applause continued as people throughout the restaurant expressed their amazement and appreciation. She had never experienced anything like this in her entire life. The warmth and enthusiasm of the audience made her feel like she was glowing from the inside. Tony Romano extended his hand to Maya with a genuine smile. "I meant what I said about the job offer. Would you be interested in playing here 3 evenings a week? I can pay you well and you would get dinner each night you work." Maya's eyes widened. A steady job with regular meals sounded like a dream come true. But she was still processing everything that had just happened. "Are you really serious?" she asked. "Completely serious," Tony replied. "I've been looking for the right pianist for this restaurant for years. You're exactly what I've been hoping to find." Before Maya could respond, several customers approached her. The elderly man who had applauded first reached out to shake her hand. "My name is Dr. Williams," he said warmly. "I'm a retired music professor from the university. Young lady, you have extraordinary talent. Have you ever considered formal musical training?" Maya felt embarrassed about her background, but Dr. Williams seemed so kind that she decided to be honest. "I've always wanted to study music seriously, but I've been in foster care. There was never money for lessons or school." Dr. Williams's expression became very serious. "That's a tragedy. Talent like yours should not go undeveloped. Do you have a place to stay? Are you getting proper support?" Maya looked down at her worn shoes. "Not really. I've been on my own for a few months now." The elderly professor exchanged a meaningful look with his wife. "Margaret," he said to her, "we should talk to Maya about the scholarship program at the university." Margaret Williams nodded enthusiastically. "There are several programs for gifted students who need financial assistance. With talent like Maya's, I'm sure we could find something." Mrs. Chen, who had been listening to this conversation, stepped forward. Maya, would you be comfortable if I made some phone calls? I know people in the music community who should hear about you. What kind of phone calls? Maya asked nervously. There's a talent scout for the state youth orchestra who comes to our school concerts, and I know a woman who runs a foundation that helps young musicians. They provide scholarships and sometimes even housing assistance. Maya felt dizzy with all the attention and possibilities. Just hours ago, her biggest concern had been finding enough food to survive another day. Now people were talking about jobs and scholarships and opportunities she had never dared to dream about. A woman at a nearby table had been recording Maya's performance on her phone. She approached the group with excitement in her eyes. I hope you don't mind, she said to Maya, but I recorded your performance of Claire de Lune. I'm a journalist for the local newspaper and I think people need to hear about you. Would you be willing to let me write a story about your music? Maya looked uncertain. A newspaper story? About me? About your talent, the journalist corrected. This kind of musical ability is rare and newsworthy. Plus, stories like yours inspire people. They remind us that extraordinary gifts can be found in unexpected places. Mrs. Chen gently touched Maya's arm. It's your choice, dear. But sometimes sharing your story can open doors to opportunities you never knew existed. Maya thought about it for a moment. The idea of being in the newspaper made her nervous, but these people all seemed to have her best interests at heart. Okay, she said quietly. If you think it might help, the journalist smiled. I'll be very respectful in how I tell your story, and I'll make sure to focus on your amazing musical ability. More customers continued to approach Maya throughout the evening. A music teacher from a private school asked if Maya would be interested in giving lessons to beginning students. A woman who organized charity concerts offered to include Maya in an upcoming fundraising event. Each conversation brought new possibilities. Maya felt like she was in a wonderful dream that she didn't want to wake up from. But the kindness and enthusiasm of these strangers felt completely real. Tony Romano returned with a formal job offer written on restaurant letterhead. Maya, I'd like you to play here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings from 6 to 9 o'clock. I'll pay you $200 per week plus dinner on the nights you work. How does that sound? Maya stared at the paper in amazement. $200 a week was more money than she had ever had in her life. With that income, she could afford a small room somewhere and regular meals. That sounds incredible, she said. But are you sure you want me? I don't have any professional experience. After what I heard tonight, I'm absolutely sure, Tony replied. You create exactly the atmosphere I want for this restaurant. Elegant, sophisticated, but also warm and welcoming. Dr. Williams had been having a quiet conversation with his wife. Now he approached Maya again. Maya, my wife and I have been talking. We have a guest house behind our home that we don't use. It's small but comfortable, with its own bathroom and kitchen. We'd like to offer it to you as a place to stay while you get back on your feet. Maya felt tears starting to come to her eyes. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me. We know your music, Margaret Williams said gently, and music tells us a lot about a person's character. Anyone who can create beauty the way you did tonight is someone worth helping. Mrs. Chen was busy making phone calls in the corner of the restaurant. She came back to the group with excitement written all over her face. Maya, I just spoke to my friend Sarah Chen at the Young Artists Foundation. She wants to meet with you tomorrow morning. She thinks there might be scholarship opportunities available immediately. What kind of scholarships? Maya asked. Full tuition to study music at the community college with possible transfer to a 4-year university later, plus stipends for living expenses and private lessons with professional musicians. Maya felt like her head was spinning. A few hours ago, she had been a homeless teenager with no prospects. Now she was being offered a job, a place to live, and opportunities for education that she had never imagined possible. The evening continued with more conversations and more offers of help. A piano teacher offered to give Maya free lessons to help her prepare for auditions. A local business owner said he would sponsor Maya's participation in upcoming competitions. As the restaurant began to empty out, Maya found herself surrounded by business cards and phone numbers. Her backpack, which had contained all her worldly possessions just that morning, was now full of opportunities and contacts. Mrs. Chen and her husband Harold had waited for the crowd to thin out before approaching Maya one more time. Maya, Mrs. Chen said, I want you to know that tonight has been as special for us as it has been for you. Thank you for sharing your beautiful gift with all of us. Thank you for believing in me, Maya replied. If you hadn't asked me to play, none of this would have happened. I think it would have happened eventually, Mrs. Chen said with a smile. Talent like yours has a way of finding the light. We were just lucky to be here when it did. As Maya prepared to leave the restaurant with Dr. and Mrs. Williams, who had insisted on taking her to their guest house that very night, she looked back at the piano one more time. The beautiful instrument sat quietly in its corner, waiting for the next time someone would bring it to life with music. Maya knew that tomorrow evening she would be back to play again. But this time she would not be a hungry, desperate girl begging for food. She would be a musician, sharing her gift with an audience who appreciated and valued what she had to offer. For the first time since her mother died, Maya felt like she belonged somewhere. She felt like she had a purpose and a future worth looking forward to. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of a mirror in the small guest house that Dr. and Mrs. Williams had given her. She was getting ready for her first performance at the city's main concert hall. The face looking back at her was the same, but everything else had changed completely. Maya wore a beautiful black dress that Mrs. Chen had helped her choose for the occasion. Her hair was clean and styled properly for the first time in months. But the biggest change was in her eyes. Where there had once been fear and desperation, now there was confidence and hope. The story about Maya had appeared in the local newspaper 5 days after her performance at Romano's restaurant. The journalist had written a beautiful article about the homeless teenager who amazed everyone with her piano talent. The story had been shared on social media thousands of times. Within hours of the article being published, Maya's phone started ringing with offers and opportunities. The phone itself was a gift from Dr. Williams, who said every young person needed a way for opportunities to find them. 3 different music schools offered Maya full scholarships. A famous piano teacher from the state university asked to take her as a private student. 2 recording studios wanted to make a demo album with her. A talent agent from the city called to discuss representation. But the most meaningful call came from a family named the Hendersons. They had read Maya's story and were moved by it because they had lost their own daughter in a car accident 2 years earlier. Their daughter Sarah had been a talented violinist, and they wanted to honor her memory by helping another young musician. The Hendersons offered to become Maya's legal guardians, giving her a real family for the first time since her mother died. They had a beautiful home with a music room that contained a grand piano, even nicer than the one at Romano's restaurant. Maya had been nervous about meeting the Henderson family at first. What if they changed their minds after getting to know her? What if she didn't fit into their life? But when she walked into their home, Mrs. Henderson hugged her like she was already part of the family. "We're not trying to replace your mother," Mr. Henderson had explained gently. "But we'd love to give you the support and opportunities that every talented young person deserves." Their 17-year-old son, Jake, had been welcoming and friendly. He showed Maya around the house and told her funny stories about his sister Sarah. "She would have loved your music," he said. "She always said the world needed more people who could create beauty." Maya still worked at Romano's restaurant 3 evenings a week. Tony had given her a raise after the newspaper article brought many new customers who came specifically to hear her play. The restaurant was now fully booked on the nights Maya performed, but more importantly, Maya was now studying music seriously. She took lessons twice a week with Professor Martinez, the renowned piano teacher from the university. She was also taking college preparation classes to help her get ready for university. Applications. The Young Artist Foundation had given Maya a full scholarship to study at the community college while also providing private lessons and performance opportunities. Sarah Chen, the foundation director, had become another mentor who helped Maya navigate her new opportunities. Maya practiced piano for 4 hours every day now. The Hendersons had soundproofed their music room so she could practice without disturbing the neighbors. Every morning, Maya woke up excited to spend time with the music she loved. Tonight was special because Maya was performing as a featured soloist with the City Symphony Orchestra. When the symphony director heard her story and listened to her play, he immediately invited her to perform with the orchestra. Maya would be playing the same Chopin nocturne that had started everything that night at Romano's restaurant. But this time, she would be playing it with full orchestral accompaniment in front of an audience of over 2,000 people. Mrs. Chen arrived at the guest house to drive Maya to the concert hall. Even though Maya now lived with the Henderson family, she had kept the guest house as a practice space and retreat. Dr. and Mrs. Williams said she could use it for as long as she needed. "Are you nervous?" Mrs. Chen asked as they drove through the city, A little, Maya admitted, but it's a good kind of nervous. I'm excited to share the music with so many people. I'm so proud of how far you've come, Mrs. Chen said. Do you remember how scared you were to play in front of 20 people at the restaurant? Maya smiled at the memory. That seems like a lifetime ago. I was so different then. You weren't different, Mrs. Chen corrected. You were always talented and special. You just needed the opportunity to show the world who you really are. When they arrived at the concert hall, Maya was amazed by the size and grandeur of the building. The lobby was filled with well-dressed people excited for the evening's performance. Many of them recognized Maya from the newspaper article and social media posts about her story. Backstage, Maya met the conductor and several members of the orchestra. They welcomed her warmly and expressed their excitement about performing with her. The concertmaster, who was the orchestra's lead violinist, told Maya that her story had inspired his own teenage daughter to practice harder. As Maya sat in the green room waiting for her turn to perform, she thought about her mother. She wished her mother could be here to see this moment, but in a way, Maya felt like her mother was with her. Every time she played music, she felt connected to the woman who had first taught her to love beautiful sounds. The time came for Maya's performance. She walked onto the stage in front of the enormous audience. The concert hall was completely full, with people sitting in every seat from the floor level all the way up to the highest balcony. Maya sat at the beautiful concert grand piano in the center of the stage. The orchestra members sat behind her, their instruments ready. The conductor raised his baton, and Maya placed her hands on the keys. The performance was magical. The Chopin Nocturne, accompanied by the full symphony orchestra, sounded even more beautiful than Maya had ever imagined it could. The orchestra provided a rich, warm background that made her piano sound like it was singing. Maya played with all the emotion and skill she had developed over the past few weeks of intensive practice. But more than that, she played with gratitude for all the people who had believed in her and helped her reach this moment. When the piece ended, the audience gave her a standing ovation that lasted for several minutes. People in the balcony were cheering and throwing flowers onto the stage. Maya stood at the piano and bowed, feeling overwhelmed by the appreciation and love coming from the audience. In the front row, she could see the Henderson family, Dr. and Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Chen and her husband, Tony Romano, and many of the customers from the restaurant who had heard her first performance. They were all there to support her and celebrate how far she had come. After the concert, there was a reception where Maya met many important people in the music world. A representative from a major recording label expressed interest in working with her. The director of a prestigious summer music festival invited her to participate next year. But the most meaningful conversation was with a young girl who approached Maya with her parents. The girl was about 12 years old and looked shy and uncertain. "My name is Emma," the girl said quietly. "I play piano too, but I'm not very good." "I'm sure you're better than you think," Maya replied, kneeling down to the girl's level. "Do you practice regularly?" "Yes, but sometimes I want to quit because it's so hard." Maya smiled and took the girl's hands. "I wanted to quit many times too, but I'm so glad I didn't. Music has brought me so much joy and so many wonderful opportunities. If you keep practicing and believing in yourself, amazing things can happen." The girl's parents thanked Maya for the encouragement. As they walked away, Maya heard the girl tell her mother, "I want to practice more when we get home." Later that evening, Maya sat in her practice room at the Williams guest house. The reviews from the concert were already appearing online, and they were all positive. One critic wrote that Maya's performance was a triumph of human spirit and musical excellence. But Maya wasn't reading the reviews. She was sitting at the piano playing softly in the dim light. She played the same Chopin nocturne that had changed her life, but this time she played it just for herself and for the memory of her mother. As she played, Maya reflected on how much had changed in just a few weeks. She had gone from being homeless and hungry to having a family, a home, educational opportunities, and a bright future in music. Maya had also started a foundation called Music for All Kids that provided instruments and lessons to children in foster care and homeless shelters. She wanted to make sure that other young people with musical talent would have opportunities to develop their gifts, regardless of their circumstances. The foundation's first fundraising concert was planned for next month, and Maya would be the featured performer. She was excited to use her story and her music to help other children who were facing the same challenges she had overcome. As Maya finished playing the nocturne, she felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude. Her life had been transformed by music, but more importantly, it had been transformed by the kindness of strangers who believed in her potential. Maya knew that her mother would be proud of the young woman she had become, and the bright,